Okay, so you know those guys on YouTube that always say, yeah, I'll definitely get back to you, or I'll definitely answer your questions, and then they never do? Well, I'm not one of those guys. So here's our first installment of me answering some of your questions. If I didn't get to your question this time, stick around. I'm sure I'll get to it next time. But we will try and answer as many questions as we can. So let's get cracking. So we're going to get straight into some of our first questions. And our first question comes from someone called Patizwi. And Patizwi's question is, it says, I've just joined the prefabricated house market and I'm looking for a supplier. Question, which plywood is best for a prefab house? Okay, Patizwi, it's actually quite a good question. My view on that subject is, if it's a prefab house, it's going to be something you're going to live in. So you want something that's going to behave well, you want something that's going to be cost effective, and you want something that's going to be able to handle moisture and temperature changes. So to me, the non-starter, the best answer there is go straight for something like marine plywood. It's going to cost you a little bit more in the short term, but in the long run, I promise you it's going to be worth it. So look for a decent quality marine grade plywood. Remember that the only difference between marine grade plywood and other plywoods is that the marine grade plywood has a water resistant glue between the layers. So ask somebody when you go shopping for plywood, is this marine grade plywood? Can they tell you what glue was used? If you're not sure where to get it, I'm going to recommend you go and ask the guys at Universal Plywoods. They've got branches in Durban, in Cape Town, in Bloemfontein, in Johannesburg. So there are a couple of different places where you can ask these questions. So go and see them or phone them, go onto their websites, check it out. But yeah, I would say marine grade plywood is probably your best bet. Okay, so the next question comes from someone called One Army, which says, please do a video of slat wall for the garage. Now, I'm going to assume you mean something like a French cleat system or some sort of a wall that either you're using for storage, or if it's decorative, then hey, guess what? The Universal Ply guys have actually just brought in self-adhesive wall slats. I actually saw it today for the first time. It's a crazy cool product. Comes in different colors. You literally just, it's peel and stick. You peel the backing off this thing, you stick it onto the wall, and hey presto, you've got this decorative wooden coating for your wall. It's crazy cool. But if you are referring to something like a French cleat system or a racking system and stuff like that, then yeah, that's a great suggestion. I think we actually will cover some of that territory, because plywood is fantastic for that, because it's very strong. It can hold lots of good weight. You can cut a French cleat or 45-degree angles into ply, and you can use stuff against the wall and hook other stuff into it. So yep, definitely a good idea. We'll give that a try. So thanks for that one. Okay, our next question comes from 2020 IT support. Okay, and they're saying, as we all know, the price of wood has restricted many projects. I have a local packaging company and can supply unlimited quantities of offcut strips at the right money. I'm hoping to laminate either 2 by 9 millimeter sheets or 3 by 9 millimeter 2.4 meter strips. I have no press, simply working from my garage. Eventually, could I get away with PVA glue, or should I use my favorite Gorilla Glue? Another cool question. Here's my best advice, is that if you're going to take whole pieces of plywood and laminate them together, I mean, PVA glue is, all polyvinyl acetate glue they're the same. They all dry to the same sort of hardness. They're very, very similar in nature. The only difference between PVA glue is from one brand to another, and even within brands, from one variant to another, is the amount of water in it. In other words, how long it takes to dry. They all cure to pretty much the same sort of strength. The bonding strength is pretty much the same. I'm also a bit of a Gorilla Glue fan, so I like to use the Gorilla PVA glue, and the reason why is that it's a water resistant glue. So if you want to create your own marine ply, then one of the ways to do that is to take, let's say, Gorilla Glue, your PVA Gorilla Glue, and just use that to laminate your pieces together. Now, if you're doing very, very big pieces of plywood and you're gluing them together, one of the tricks that I sometimes do, and you're going to laugh about this, but it's true, is I put the glue on, I put my layers together, and I take little pins, little nails, and just in the corners, just tack it together so that the glue doesn't slide or slip around. And then I put a nice big board on top of all that, and I drive my car up onto it, and just put all the weight in the world on it, and it stays dead flat. So give that a try. It's quite a cool trick. But yeah, the normal Gorilla Glue that you might be referring to, which is the one that bubbles up, it's the polyurethane glue, that would actually force your boards apart. So don't use the polyurethane glue, rather just stick with a PVA glue like a normal polyvinyl acetate. and wait for it to dry and tack up, and then put lots of weight on that, and it'll work just fine. Right, cool. Next question. This one is DJ Big Mac 209 saying, thanks very much for waiting for me to subscribe. You have a great way of keeping people glued to what you're teaching and not get bored. So I appreciate that. I do like to teach people stuff, and if I can make it more humorous for you, then what the hell. I mean, we're all in this together. We may as well have some fun, right? So thanks for that. It's a very kind comment. Okay, so this is a nice comment. This is from Cyril de Boerta. And it says, just wanted to know the best bits to use to drill a hole into 30mm MDF. I tried a brand new 10mm wood bit, but it just didn't even penetrate the board. Okay, that's a good question. And the reason why it's a good question is that it often happens that, especially with MDF board, if you're using the kind of drill bit that is a wood drill bit, then it gets clogged very, very quickly. You could even use a Forstner bit, which is a bit that looks like that. So Cyrilda, what probably happened is that even if it was a brand new 10mm wood bit, it gets jammed. So even a Forstner bit like this, which is a great bit for drilling holes into MDF or just about any wood, what happens is that the way in which it cuts, it jams up into here, and it actually prevents it from cutting because it actually just gets jammed. The best way to deal with that, you don't have to go rush out and buy a new bit. It's not a problem. Take the bit out of the hole that you start, clear it out, drill it again. You may have to drill several times to get through it to get a nice clean hole, but your drill bit will work. If you have a look at drill bits, one of the things that you can see is that from time to time the spiral changes. So you have ones with more radical spirals or ones with less radical spirals, and the ones that sort of the deeper the track, the faster it clears material away. So maybe what you're using is a drill bit that isn't clearing material away fast enough, and that's maybe what's happening. So you can use that drill bit. You may have to clear it out once or twice more often than what you think, but it'll certainly work. However, you can get drill bits where the material is cleared faster. But yeah, it's a good question. Thanks for that. Right, here's another one from Ian H, who says, I'd be interested to see plywood cut with a handsaw just for those of us who have a really tight budget. Believe me, there are more people in the world with a tight budget than people who don't have tight budgets. So yes, certainly we will show you how to cut plywood with a handsaw. But just to quickly tell you what you can't do is you shouldn't cut plywood with one of these newfangled fancy Japanese saws. The teeth on those saws aren't designed to be able to cut plywood. Largely speaking, they're for cutting solid wood, and they're either for ripping or for cross-cutting. So because plywood has alternating layers, so it goes one layer this way, one layer that way, and so forth, it destroys the teeth on a Japanese saw. So don't use Japanese saws to cut plywood. However, what you can use is a good old-fashioned Western style carcass saw, a tenon saw, even a rip saw or a crosscut saw. Nowadays you can go to any hardware store just about and get a very good hybrid rip and crosscut saw for a couple of bucks. They're not massively expensive, they're super fast to cut with, and all you have to do is get your sawing technique right. So perhaps what we'll do is a very quick video on how to cut plywood with a handsaw. And again, if you've got to cut curves in plywood, you don't need a jigsaw. You can actually use a normal coping saw or a normal fret saw, and just it might take you slightly longer, but you can still cut round shapes and curves. Again, there's always a hand tool alternative. Always there's a way to do it, which is why I love hand tools so much, because you can always find a tool to do the job for you. All right, cool. So this one is for Chris Upton. Chris is actually a friend of mine. So Chris, I think I've actually answered this question, but the difference between marine plywood and other plywood basically boils down to the glue that's used between the layers. So if it's a marine grade plywood, it will be a water resistant glue, and it's as simple as that. There are lots of other complicated things we can get into, but the guts of it is basically it's better glue between the layers. So that's the real difference. Brian Williams in the UK mentioned danger when working with MDF. Brian, that's a very good point. When you are working with MDF or what we call superwood, medium density fiberboard, the particles in the air, the dust isn't great for you. So when you are using that stuff, it's very important to wear a mask. It isn't particularly dangerous to cut. It actually behaves incredibly well on a saw. It's very unlikely that it will misbehave when you're working with it, but the dust that it does create is seriously bad for you. So please wear a respirator, wear a mask, make sure that you have something to protect your lungs. So here's a good question from someone called Robin van Nieuwenhuizen. And Robin says, any advice on which plywood would be best to use for plywood edge pattern work? Now, there is another fantastic channel out on YouTube. I think his name is Michael Ulm, if I remember correctly, but he uses plywood to make edge grain plywood patterns. To me, the simple answer is use something like birch ply, because it's got more layers, it looks better, and there aren't any voids. There's no holes in the layers. So when you're doing edge grain stuff, you won't have these unsightly holes and voids in it. So I think birch plywood is probably your best bet. You might get lucky with a commercial grade ply if it's well made, depending on the quality of the plywood where you're buying it or in your area. But for me, the safest bet, if you're going to slice lots and lots of slices out of something, then probably just stick with birch ply, only because you know that there won't be any voids, and it'll be nice and compact and very neat. So that's a good question. Thank you, Robin. So this one comes from Video Reviewer 502. He's an actual video reviewer, and he says, another awesome video. So if a video reviewer is saying that's an awesome video, then, well, we must be doing something okay. But anyway, that's very kind of you. Thank you. Thanks for watching. Okay, this one's from Traveling Toes, which says, I love it when a video makes me laugh while sharing the information needed. Great video, thanks. Well, that's, like I said again, that's what we like to try and do. There's no point in making it boring. If you're going to learn something, you may as well have fun doing it. So thanks for watching. Okay, so I hope I've answered some of your questions, and like I said, we are going to be doing this from time to time. I will definitely try and get back to as many people as possible. If you have a question, like I said, just drop it in the comment section below. We'll get back to you. If you are new to this space and this channel, thanks for popping by and hanging out with us. I hope you had some fun. I know we do every time we shoot these things. It's normally a big giggle, but hey, why not have some fun while we're doing this stuff anyway? So thanks for popping by. You can give us a thumbs up and a like if you like, or you can subscribe, which is even better. Join the Universal Plywoods family. It's a giggle out here, and we share lots of cool things and information and videos. So just because we can't think of absolutely everything, we're going to let you guys also help us out. So if you think there's a project you'd like us to do with plywood, or you have a project that's related to one of the questions that came up on this discussion, or in one of the comment sections, then just let us know, because hey, like I said, we can't think of everything. So we're open to suggestions. Just give us a shout, or say, try this or try that, or what about you guys do this? I mean, you can ask. You never know. Maybe we'll do something that none of us had ever thought of before. Maybe we invent something together. Maybe we come up with a brand new idea just by accident. So don't be shy. Give us an idea. Give us a thought. Let's get this ball rolling. So just come and hang out with us whenever you feel like it. If you want to know when something new is coming up, you can just ring the bell and we'll let you know. And yeah, like I said, thanks for popping by, and we'll see you next time.